I didn't start carpentry till I was 30. I didn't even grab a saw, Now that I've been a carpenter and you've worked out in the elements, in the sun and the rain and the snow, and which I love being outside. It takes havoc on your skin. So I said, the only way I'm going to have a home is I'm going to have to build it myself. I said, hey, can I borrow $30,000? And he said, for what? And I said, I'm going to build me a house. And he said, you can't build a house for $30,000. Is what does it is passion and a desire. And to me, that comes from necessity. I needed a house.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. So today I have a special guest, a very entertaining guest, Randy Jones, and he has incredible tiny homes, which is a business here in the Knoxville area. And so we're going to talk about how we met and some, fun happenings since then. But if you want to say a few words and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Incredible Tiny Homes as well.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks for having me. We have a little company in Newport, Tennessee. It started about 9 years ago building tiny homes. Started in the backyard, really, and now we're at over 100 employees building about 800 homes a year, which is crazy. Ever thought? I mean, I started the first one by myself, and we're to that point now. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and then we've got a YouTube channel. We started just with the camera, you go, and then now we're close to 200,000 followers.
Yes,
It makes me mad because I'm always like, everybody gets 1 million followers for just showing the simplest thing, and we do a video every single day. So it's Incredible Tiny Homes on YouTube, and so go there if you could.
And you have got to check it out because he is very entertaining. Well, his crew, because who's your assistant that's with you all the time?
Amanda.
She was taking videos at first, right?
Yeah, she was doing the videos. Sometimes we'll do them together, back and forth. But yeah, it's just a daily grind of what we do, how we build, what's going on, and we're just so different than any company in the country, So we sell homes from 15,000 up to 200,000, and anything in between, and it's just super exciting. And doing that, I'd never seen myself that much like on video, right? I mean, who does? If you're not doing a YouTube, you never see yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm a carpenter. I've been a carpenter for 30 some years. I didn't start carpentry till I was 30. I didn't even grab a saw,
Yeah.
And so now that I've been a carpenter and you've worked out in the elements, in the sun and the rain and the snow, and which I love being outside, and it takes havoc on your skin.
Well, before we even get there, you got to tell me how you started that at age 30. Like, what made you go into carpentry for the first time at age 30?
I went to college. When I went to college, I was told don't go to college because I didn't have what it took. I did one of them pre-entrance exams, exams, and they looked at me and they said, you should be a welder. I said, a welder? I didn't even know how to weld, And they said, you don't fit college. You don't have the aptitude to go to college. You'll fail. I said, good God.
Who does those tests?
Oh, well, it was the dean of the college. She said, you don't need to be here. And I said, well, I'm going to take them anyway. Well, she was right. 3 years later, I had a 1.8 grade point average. And I didn't party. I didn't do anything. It just didn't register. Yeah. So I dropped out for about 3 years. And I realized that I was just driving a van delivering medical supplies down in Florida. I went from Michigan to Florida and met a couple buddies. We're building a company for this guy, just driving a van, working all the time, hitting the road all the time, driving, delivering oxygen tanks and wheelchairs and beds. I said, I got to do something, And so I met this teacher that I didn't know. We went to this, it was a Bible study at this guy invited me. He goes, come on, I want you to meet this guy. So I went there, and here's this room full of kids, high school kids, and this teacher. And they all just thought he was cool, and he had a soccer field in his backyard. There was kids coming in and out of the door of the house, and he had his little kids running around like, I want this life. Because I love energy, I love people, I love kids, and I love changing. And I said, I want to do this, man. And so I said, I want to go back to school. And I was like, no school would have me because I couldn't pass any aptitude tests. So I went back to the school at Eastern Michigan University that allowed me to come there because I went 2 years at JC College, and they allowed me to do 1 year. Even though I about flunked out, I got straight D's in it, they allowed me to come back. And I remember going back. Now I'm married. I'm 25 years old. I go back, and I want to be a teacher. And I made the dean's list for the last 2 years.
Wow, look at you.
Every single one. So there's a difference when a young man turns 25, because when it happened, I mean, I matured.
Well,
And
we
yeah.
can there's probably segues into so many different podcasts just based on what you
Oh,
just said to me because you can talk about that. Like men, again,
yes.
I've had a couple very successful men say, "I'm surprised we even grow up to be able to do anything because it takes us a while
Oh,
to
yeah.
mature into it."
Yeah. I
That's
didn't know
one of them, but
carpentry. I
yeah,
mean, the guy told me, he said, can you fix my roof? I said, yeah, you got to get this tar and you got to heat it up and pour it on the roof. So I built a campfire and I'm putting tar, buckets of 5-gallon tar on a campfire to get his roof. And that was so stupid. All you had to do was scoop it out and put it on the roof. I thought you had to boil it, like you see on TV and you pour it out there and
sound
all
like
that.
me. It's
He
something
threw
I
me
would
off
do.
that roof.
Yeah.
He said, what are you doing up there? I didn't know what a hammer looked like. So
Uh-uh.
then I become a school teacher and I
Yeah, so
moved to
yeah.
Tennessee,
So you
which,
were in Michigan when all that happened in the
yeah,
college. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. And
And they were wrong. That's the second podcast. Like, again, I feel like almost
yes,
if a young guy, a young boy is told that he can't do something, it almost plants a seed too. So on the
yeah.
other hand, it could be that.
Oh, listen,
So yeah, because
after
you
I
did
got out
it.
of college, started in construction, the people that had known me in the past, they said, there's no way you can build. I mean, I was like, there was no way Randy Jones was built. When you heard my name,
Well,
Randy Jones, everybody had a smile because I was just a jokester. I was just fun loving.
well,
Go.
he's a character for sure.
I don't know.
But
Yeah. But, there are so many offshoots of stories of how I got to where I did and the teaching and stuff. And I came here to Knox County.
as a
And
teacher,
yeah, yeah. And to come to find out, all of my family are from East Tennessee.
oh,
My grandparents are from Rockwood. My mom and dad's from West Virginia, Kentucky. But their family is from Anderson County, Knox County,
all around.
all of them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew West Virginia, Kentucky. So
Mhm.
there was just a big draw for me to come here. And I've come here now, and I've been here since 1987.
Did
And
you ever teach?
I taught for 3 years.
Okay.
I taught at La Follette Middle School, Vine Middle School, which is in the inner city, and in Carter High School.
Wow.
And taught all of them. And again, there's another podcast. I can tell you so many stories of just the 3 years that I taught, of the experiences I had,
And
it
the
was,
impact probably
oh,
you
it was
had on
amazing.
young.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I got, okay, where did my carpentry skills come from?
Yeah, I was like, then how do you go from teaching to carpentry?
Well, all teachers complain about their pay. I don't make enough money.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I was getting into teaching, I made $16,000 at La Follette. I could have stayed in Michigan and taught in my home school, my hometown, for $32,000. And I said, no, I want to go to the mountains. This is where I'm drawn. This is where my family's from. I want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I came and taught for $16,000. I didn't complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
I went from there to Knox County, got a little bit more money, and then Carter. At the end, I think I was making 24, 25
Yeah.
grand. And I knew that's the way it was. So I said, the only way I'm going to have a home is I'm going to have to build it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the Teachers Credit Union and I said, hey, can I borrow $30,000? And they said, for what? And I said, I'm going to build me a house. And they said, you can't build a house for $30,000. I said, yeah, I'm going to. I got it all set up. And by that time, my wife and we had saved up enough money to buy 7 acres over in Straw Plains,
Mm-hmm.
Strawberry Plains.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to build a house. They loaned me the money. Well, I had all my trees tagged with a ribbon, and I didn't know anything about cutting a tree or anything, but I went to TVA, studied what kind of trees are good lumber to build a house. And so I put a ribbon around all the trees on my land. And I borrowed a chainsaw because I figured that's how you cut a tree. I seen it on TV, you cut a tree with a chainsaw, right? Well, I borrowed this chainsaw from this guy, buddy of mine, and I started cutting a tree. And the first one I cut is supposed to fall, and it just went, and it just stopped, and it didn't fall. And I cut 6 trees, and none of them hit the ground. And I'm like, how am I going to build a house when I can't even get the tree on the ground? So anyway, I had a Chevette, a 1978 Chevette that my mom had gotten in 78 when I was in high school. She ended up giving it back to me because it was old now, And
That was my first car.
was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was a
Yeah.
Pinto.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mine
I
was
took
a
a
blue.
chain. Yeah. I took a chain, hooked it to that Chevette, and jerked them trees down out of the woods. Anyway, push come to shove, I learned carpentry. And what I did is I went to the library and I got a book of how to frame a house. And I looked at that thing and I said, okay, there's 2x4s this way, that way. And I bought the tools and I started building me a house. And in 8 months, I had built me a 3,000 square foot house.
I wondered if it was small.
Yeah.
It wasn't small.
It had a wraparound porch. It was a southern with dormers on it.
Wow.
It had a metal roof on it. I framed it all, painted. I wired, plumbed everything. I had I had a couple friends help me for a couple weeks. They were great guys, but they had their own life too. So what I would do is I would teach, come home at 3:34, and I'd work till 2 in the morning. I took 2 days off, Christmas and Thanksgiving, and my left hand here and my right foot went numb for a year after that because it was just so
Yeah,
much
just so
swinging
much
and
working,
work.
yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up building that house,
Wow.
and I cut my own glass to make my own
You learned
windows,
every aspect of it.
everything. And that led into a love of construction. And I said, I like doing this. I love working physically hard. It was, you know what? I didn't know that I liked it until I did it. And it was all this creativity started
I was
coming out
gonna
of
say,
me. And I'm like,
creation, yeah.
whoa, I love this, you know?
Yeah.
So I started building. I said, I'm going to try this out. So I got out of teaching and started building. And ever since then building got in for about 4 or 5 years. And then I got into developing land. And then that was a whole nother creative outlet that I've had, you know, that I actually take land and I have to think in my head where I want roads and how I want homes to sit. And then I built a resort out of Sevier County. I got so many stories.
Well, I was going to say,
could
like,
keep
as
going.
you tell the stories, there's, again, so many different things
Yeah.
you can talk about because, again, it's creativity. And you did have the aptitude to learn. You've been learning ever since.
Yeah,
So
I was just so
it's-
different, you know, and I
Yeah.
needed, you know, I get guys work for me now. They're 19, 20, bunch of young guys, and society's telling us that we don't have, them young boys coming up aren't like what we were. You know what? I'm finding I just give them a little bit of my time and really show them some
can develop.
direction and love, and I really care about them. And man, they're doing exactly what I want them to do, and they're having a work ethic, and I'm seeing it. And it's
Yeah.
all about them. I think being
Passionate about what they're doing.
yeah, they got to, and you got to feed that to them, you know. And they don't know where to put their energies to.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, I tell everybody, if you take a young guy, don't judge him. I said he's going to look like he can't hardly walk. Give him 3 or 4 years when he starts maturing. I said, you don't know what that little guy's going to turn into, and that was me.
Yeah.
You know, you never would ever think I would be sitting here.
So you're still teaching, you're developing, but you're developing even more
You're
than you
right.
can do when you're in the classroom.
You're right.
You know, because it's real life. And I don't think they get enough of the real life skills. And again, you can't see a finished product, you know, or where you're progressing. So, yeah, I think it's amazing when I see, you know, businesses and men like you developing young men
Yeah.
into the talents because we need that
It's
skill.
it's such a challenge to do. Like there was 3 boys working over the weekend, and I worked with them, and I said, boys, they were working by the hour, and they were just dragging. I said, I tell you what, I said, I'll give you $1,500 a piece if you get this done by Sunday night. I mean, they put nitrous under them, man. They took off, and I said, well, look, a little bit of money does to you, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they were working into the dark, got him early, worked into the dark again, and then at a point they got a little tricky, and I had to get up there and help them for 3 or 4 hours, you know. And it was
Yeah.
so good to help them and work them, and they were sunburnt, they were wore out, they were sore. One of their dads called me Monday morning. He said, "Man, you wore my boy out." I said,
Yeah.
and he loved working,
Yeah.
and so it was just so
Love
cool
it.
to be able to see that come together, you know. And I enjoyed the boys'
Yeah.
company, and then to see them with they're
Yeah.
figuring all that out. you
And
know?
they're so proud when they're done with it.
Yeah.
I have a few projects. I'm willing. I'm not above, you know, bribery for
Yeah.
some money too to get them done.
Yeah.
So if they're ever bored, just send them over here.
gosh,
we
we
got all
got-
kinds of projects.
Don't we all?
But-
I know.
But I had a very similar experience with my son who is about to turn 21.
Okay.
You know, and again, that late teenager, well, like again, in his late teenage years, COVID was hitting, you know, they're out of school. High school was a little different, and he was never really the, you know, learning school type
Yeah.
necessarily. And, but like, male role models was not something that he had a lot of
Right.
and or good ones
Right.
in his life. And so I have a business mentor and friend in town that kind of took him on the same way.
There you go.
And so just, you know, he started working on his properties and they were building out different things. And so it changed the course of his, you know, entire late teenage years and even now.
Yeah.
You know, he takes it. So I'd love to see that happen because I agree with you. You know, they just don't have, I think about it from a standpoint of I can't teach, you know, a young boy how to fix things around the house, for instance, right? And so where do they get that from if there's not a man that has time to do that too? Because
Right.
some of them don't because people are working. So
Yeah, you know, my dad
you've
didn't.
gotta,
He didn't. My dad was a coal miner out of Kentucky, and man, he was a professional rester. He knew how to rest.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you
So
don't, yeah,
when he come home, he rested. He didn't fix nothing around the house. Loved him dearly. We were great friends, and he
yeah.
he loved me
It
with all
wasn't
his
his
heart.
strength, though.
He
Yeah.
didn't know anything. I didn't grab a saw. My mom lost her left finger, and during the in the 40s, working in the factories for the war, and she
Mm-hmm.
didn't want me to pick up a saw. And I really think that I didn't have a mentor
Mm,
for any of it. Not even building these tiny homes.
yeah.
But you know what it was, what you said earlier, is what does it is passion
Mm-hmm.
and a desire. And to me, that comes from necessity. I needed a house and I couldn't afford it. So most people say, well, I can't afford it, I'm not going to do it. Or they're going to say, well, I'm going to go ask mom or dad, or I'm going to go to the bank and borrow it. I couldn't afford to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had to build my house, I had to leave. I had to sell that home I was living in. The rental of it was too much. I couldn't rent and have the property and the loan and all together. So I went back then, back years ago, you'd have to get everything on the newspaper and on the classified ads to buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
There was this guy selling used lumber from a garage that had burnt down. And he wanted to sell it all for $150. And it was burnt. It was charred. It had nails in it.
Yeah.
So I went and I had my Chevette. And I had no way of getting that wood to the property that I was going to build the house. And I needed to build a shack to live in while I'm building my house.
Yes.
So I went to Sam's Wholesale, bought a $500 trailer, assembled it with nuts and bolts and a little wrench, hooked it to that Chevette, and went and bought that $150 worth of lumber, come back and built a 10 by 10 shack for my wife and I to live in while we're
While you're
building the
building.
house. And you look up and there's all the charred lumber and everything was just charred. I didn't put no insulation in anything. I ran some piping and
Wow.
so in our toilet. So when she flushed the toilet, I had to run out there with a 5-gallon bucket and catch it. And then I had to dig a hole. So we didn't
Wow.
have anything. And the
Yeah.
washer and dryer, we were
Well,
perfect Appalachian.
that takes creativity to a new level.
It was. I
must
woke
say.
up.
Yeah,
It took
that's
too
it.
long to build the house. I woke up and she was beating ice out of the toilet one morning. And I said, well, I got to put some insulation in here.
Yeah, got to keep it warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the passion for these young people and stuff is I think you got to push them to a necessity.
Well, and I think that there is something I'm hearing in what you're telling me that,
Yeah.
sometimes I think you probably see it now,
Mhm.
but probably didn't all along is what made you different is the drive too. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people in that situation that aren't going to do what you just told us about.
No, they're not.
They're not going to build the trailer. They're not going to go
No.
out and, they're not even going to build a shack while they're building something else,
You got it.
So I think the drive, yes, there
Yeah.
was a necessity, but you're different because you had a drive to do that.
I'm
and
different.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and you're passionate about what you do, which then it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like work, does it? It's
No,
not.
I mean,
When
nothing
you see-
ever felt like work to me. I've
Yeah.
always just, you know what? And I've always, I'm just always grateful to be alive. When I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, I'm like, wow, I get another day.
So drive and attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes
And
a
it's
big
always been
difference.
in
So,
me.
yeah.
Even
Yeah.
when I was a boy, I realized that life was going to be hard. I'm talking when I was in grade school. I knew life was not going to be comfortable.
Mm.
I don't know why. And so I thought to myself, well, if I can endure more uncomfortable situations, I'm going to be more successful.
Mm.
So if I was cold, I wouldn't try to get warm. If I was hot, I wouldn't try to get cold. I would endure that pain and I would try to overcome all these circumstances. My dad was super negative. If it was raining, well, I wish it'd be dry. If it was cold, if it was hot. And I said, and it made my stomach feel weird
Yeah,
inside. I
yeah.
don't like negativity.
No, I don't either.
So I thought, he complains about everything because he doesn't endure anything. And this is my concept of dad.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't want to be that way. So I want to endure it. Like, if this chair is too hard on me right now, you'll never know it because I'm never going to say nothing. It's just part of it. You deal with it and you go
Yeah.
on. And it makes you more resilient, I think. So when I was told I couldn't go to college, it didn't even faze me.
Mhm.
I said, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'll make it. It took me 6 years, but I'll get there.
Hard to be told you can't do something. Huh?
Yeah, and I
It's
don't
a-
do it out of like saying, I'll show
Yeah.
you. I just do it because that's not what I want to do. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it because that's what I want to do. And I
Well,
don't,
you're in the process of doing something. Somebody telling
Yeah.
you something negative doesn't change
it doesn't.
what you want to do.
I told my guys, I said, guys, I fail 80% of the time. And I said, but I'm living on 20% of success. And I said, I realize that all the time when I'm working, what I'm doing, in everything. And so, the old saying, Babe Ruth was the greatest strikeout king there ever was, but you don't ever hear that. He hit more home runs than anybody,
Yeah.
and we don't look at life like that. And I do, because I fail constantly. I get up, and we can get back to what I'm here for with you,
Well,
is I
that's
get up and
okay. I
look in the
love
mirror.
hearing the story, and you probably don't get enough time to actually get on a video and talk about the story. I know that you're very personable and
Yeah.
very personal when you're on your videos, so you don't hold back. But you probably, I wonder if all your viewers have even heard, the story. Because I think, it's that attitude, that passion, creativity, but drive. But also, I think our best role models are probably negative role models because we don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so some of the best ones are. So I love hearing the story
Well,
because
thank you.
I think
Yeah.
by now you're different with that because you don't, but you can now bring that out in other young men.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another passion of yours, not just building
Yeah.
and the business, but also developing,
Yeah.
young men. I think that became like something that was obvious with us at Revitalize is that, we happen to have an all-female staff. It wasn't like meant to be. Like I didn't, set out to do that. But I think as that's happened, to see young women, develop into whatever they're passionate about
Right.
within the business also becomes like an empowerment of, young women and women in general.
Sure.
So it's like it's a passion too, but you don't know it going into it.
Right.
You're just doing
just
your
happens.
thing and then something else happens
One thing
as
leads
part
to
of it.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I never wanted employees because I thought, man, I don't want all these employees. I was always a 3-man crew. It was me and 2 other guys, and we were tight. It was like a brotherhood, and we would outperform anybody and anybody around. We'd outperform 8, 10 man crews, And it was just physically, we knew what we could do. It was amazing what we did up in the mountains in Gatlinburg, building log cabins.
Yeah.
And but now that I got these employees, and now I take on their responsibilities. We got guys that's been in prison. The guys that's been their home life has been awful. They've been battered and beaten, and
Yeah.
I feel this responsibility. I need them to work for me, and for them to do that, I told them this morning. I said, guys, if I get a letter from your wives saying you're the greatest man in the world, I said, I'm gonna give you a raise. I said, you got to have a good life with your wife.
Yeah.
You got to have a good relationship, and I want to hear that you're the man at the house. And I said, guys,
I love
remember,
it.
anything you do alone, I says, makes out who you really are. So I said, when you think you're sneaking around doing something alone that ain't right, I said, it'll come out in the daylight. Eventually, it's going to show its head.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that these guys have never heard that kind of talk, And when I get done talking, they walk away. I'm like, oh, they're probably thinking me, good, I didn't have to do work for 5 minutes. I get to hear Randy talk,
But that's not what they're
I'm
thinking.
hoping
Yeah.
it hits
Yeah.
home. So
And I
there's-
think it
yeah.
does. I think it does because they haven't heard that, and they've been in bad situations. But
Yeah.
just for those of you that are listening that don't know East Tennessee, it's a great place. And again, for those of you that are confused between Kentucky, West Virginia, and Tennessee, they're all separate states close to each other.
Yeah.
I've had that happen before where people will think I'm in Kentucky. I'm like, no, it's close.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful, and there's it's spread out. It's not a concentrated city, and it's spread out. It's beautiful. It's mountainous. There's trees, there's hiking, there's lakes. And so, the areas that Randy's talking about are so many different like outliers of just our small town, Knoxville, and they're all beautiful. And so, again, I think that they're hardworking and, country, that big city thing isn't, part of
Right.
this area. And so I think they probably need all of that, right? If they're,
Yeah, it's, because, everybody knows meth hit in the 90s,
Yes,
and it
yeah.
hit these small Appalachian towns. And guys, and Lord, we got half of our guys have been on meth, and their lives have been changed, before they come to me. And
or opiates was another thing that
It's
hit pretty
awful.
hard here.
and
But
the stories that I've heard from guys that work for us. But the thing is it's just boredom and not having a passion, not having a desire, not having a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with your life? And people ask me, when are you going to retire? I said, I'm never going to retire.
You're not even working.
I got to have
Right?
something to
Yeah.
do and a
Yeah.
purpose in life. You know, I don't want my business to run my life, and I want to enjoy this world that we're in, but I got to have a purpose. You know, and I think we
Yeah.
all need that purpose to come together, and that's what drives me. You know, and I think to not fail or not worry about failing gives me so much freedom to be creative because I'm not scared to fail. Now, I don't want to fail, but it doesn't keep me from trying.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Well, and so his channel, which I do highly encourage you to go check out, is Incredible Tiny Homes on YouTube. And he again takes you through lots of different homes. And so when he's talking about, the business not running his life, but you can tell he has fun and it's not, he's like enjoying what he does. But the homes are incredible, different sizes, different, I guess, different levels of, complexity or, design. And so they're incredible. And again, you can put them anywhere and they're actually mobile. I
Yeah.
learned a lot. So
Well, thank you.
he's really built out an incredible business. And I'm going to make a trip out
Yeah.
and see it. And this is how we kind of came together. He was in the office walking down the hallway with your girlfriend. And all of a sudden it was, hey, I don't even know how we started talking. Like, I think the nurse had
Yeah, we're getting ready
introduced
to
us
leave.
and
Yeah.
we were talking about peptides. And before
Yeah.
you knew it, they unfortunately had to be exposed to some before and afters because I don't have to be in a conversation very
Yeah.
long with somebody before
That's
I'm talking
awesome.
sexual wellness. And
Mm-hmm.
I think before and after vagina pictures, right? I'll just put it out there before you do.
No, that's
So you
fine.
guys had to see that. But,
It was, yeah.
again, we're just. I think we just started talking about, your business and my business, and we can go on for hours when you're
Yeah.
passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that's how we met, and it was peptides was one
Yep.
of the reasons that you were in the office. And
Well,
so,
you hear
yeah.
peptides on YouTube, and I'm getting older, and I'm like, you hear about you're losing muscle mass and you're losing bone density, and I'm not physically working like I did anymore, and I've got horrible knees and shoulders that are completely wrecked, and I was told to get all new replacements and shoulder replacement, and I ended up going to Medellin, Colombia, to a place called Bioaccelerator, and I got stem cell. Changed my whole entire
was that
life.
into the joint, IV or IM, into
Both.
the joint? Okay, all of it.
Yeah, it was
All
umbilical
right.
cord, culturized stem cell that was into the joint, IV, and everything. And I went about 3 years ago, and then I went again about a year and a half after that, which was about 8 months ago now, and revolutionized my whole life because I've always been super physical, and I lost the ability to really work hard because of my knees were so horrible. The doctors wanted to cut me off the middle of the thigh and replace everything.
Yeah.
And I just
yeah.
couldn't do it, And now, I mean, it's
So
on.
your results with that were
Oh, yeah.
life changing.
Yeah, and now I can go back to squatting and working out and doing what I got to do, climbing a ladder. I worked all weekend, and I'm talking I couldn't hardly walk before that. So that was one part of the repair that I had to have. And then we're at home doing YouTube, and then my hobby is longevity and health because I want to stay healthy as long as I can. So I'm trying to eat right. I'm doing this stuff, and I've seen some of the people that I really follow were talking about peptides, and I didn't know what that was. And so we look you up. I'm like, you do peptides, you know what there are, and so I started thinking about doing that and what they can involve. And I don't want to take steroids. I don't want to take a human growth hormone, and I'm not trying to be some big
Nothing
bodybuilder.
unnatural, like yes.
Yeah,
So.
I want to be healthy, And just to backtrack, I was at a gym down in South Carolina before we were doing a video on a development we were doing for tiny homes, and these guys walk in, and this one guy, he was like in his mid 40s, and we're in the locker room, right? And I don't know about girls, but we're in the locker room, and I look at the guy and I said, "Man," I said, "you look awesome," And I didn't know who he was. He said, "Thanks, man." He goes, "I didn't look like that a couple years ago." And we started getting into it. And there's a couple other guys. We're all joining this conversation. He had cannonballs for shoulders and just looked beautiful. And I was like, he said, "Yeah, about 3 years ago, I was a couch potato, And he said, my wife was on me all the time. I got 2 kids jerking on me, and I didn't feel like getting off the couch. I'd work all day, come home, lay down. I was just tired. And he said, I got some CJC 11295 or what it is.
Yeah, CJC
And
1295.
changed his life, man. He said, I started getting more energy. He said, and it took a couple years, but he started putting on more muscle mass. And then he talked about some MK677 or something. And he said, that even did it. And I'm like, whoa, what is all this stuff?
What are all these numbers?
Yeah.
I know.
So I I kind of looked into YouTube and looking at it, and I seen where your clinic knew about all that stuff, And so anyway, it's been a journey to come there. And of course, I'm on YouTube a lot for our company and our YouTube channel.
I love YouTube. Yeah.
And I'm
it's a
looking
source of information. YouTube University. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the horrible thing is you get to see yourself, and I'm like,
oh no, Well, we'll get to that in a moment. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like, wow, I look pretty rough here.
But it's interesting, even the stem cell, when you talk about it, because again, it's something that people frequently have to leave the country for, just because it's such a gray area.
Yep.
That exosomes and stem, I think, are making their way here, and even placental sources now. So hopefully that becomes more of an accepted thing. When there's regulation in the U.S. the way that it is, sometimes, it comes into play because it's based on safety concerns, but sometimes I think it's just you don't have a large amount of studies to support it.
Right.
But I don't think there's probably less in the way of safety, at least from what I see and hear, and I don't see studies to that. But you hear all the time your story about, stem cell injections, joint, IM, IV. And then the peptides, again, it's almost long game. So, if you need hormones, you can optimize them. But peptides is taking that growth hormone and being able to optimize it with CJC 1295.
Yeah.
And that's a more natural way, which is what you were looking for. So
Yeah,
something
sure
that'll
was.
stimulate your own release, but not shut it down. And then you don't have to be, Arnold, in a, not to say that Arnold was unnatural, I have no idea, but you're not, you
Sure.
just want to be your optimal self.
Right.
And so, and by the way, he was doing all the right things because his body composition was like, right on, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what Erin introduced us, because she was
Yeah, it's
walking out
true,
saying
yeah.
he wants peptides, but but his body composition is, as far as, lean to fat ratio was perfect. So
Right.
you're just optimizing.
Well, listen, I could gain weight, man. I'm not naturally thin or anything. I look at food and gain weight, but I always watch what I do. I try to do it, and even more now. We got this food app that I'm able to put everything in and really get educated about. Wow, it's amazing what you put in your mouth, what it does, and the values of fats and carbs and all this. So it's super interesting. You wouldn't believe just the little bit you eat. We have guac in here today, and I'm like, good, I could eat a whole gallon of that stuff, walk out of here, and I'm like over my calories, my fats, and I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
And so really paying attention to what you eat has helped me with my energy level and my focus. Because guys tell me, said, how in the world do you manage like over 100 employees, developing 5 and 6 properties? You got office going on and marketing and websites and YouTubes and all this. And it's like, I call it spinning plates. And I've got like 10, 20 plates just spinning constantly. And I got to run on them. So I can't get up in the morning and be foggy. I can't be at the 3 o'clock nap time where everybody wants a Snickers bar. That doesn't hit me. I don't have this boom, nothing. It's just full on, full tilt, right to bed, full energy. And to have that, you have to have the right fuel to do it. And I'll eat this marble table to feel that way. Whatever it takes, I'll eat it. I don't need to satisfy my palate. And I think it goes back to when I told you I was younger. Life is not easy. And if you're going to take the easy road out, you're not going to have a trim waistline, and you're going to feel like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you're willing to go through a little bit of pain every day, my happiness is from feeling good, is knowing that I can get up out of this chair and I'm not dazed or anything. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get it. My mind's already clicking what I got to do after this podcast, what I'm going to, what I'm doing tonight, everything in the next week and a day. And
boy, he's motivated me right now. Like so he has a lot of businesses, as you can see. So it's one, that spins off another. But I think this is one of your things you talk about more on your YouTube as well. I think everyone would love to hear, just those little inspirational, you just gave us a whole bunch of them.
Man.
All in one. Yeah.
I guess I don't see the value in it. I mean, it's just who I am. And
Oh yeah, no, I think it gets to a point. I've watched a couple that are very unique in what they say. But I think if it's a problem that you have solved, that you've had to read and solve, that talking about it and how you got through it helps somebody else get through it faster.
Yeah.
Because you're just talking about what you're passionate about or what you're learning about, and then it
Hmm.
teaches somebody else. So even if you're one step ahead of them, and you're talking about how you're one step ahead of them,
Yeah.
it helps them.
Right.
So what
Good.
food app are you using?
Yeah.
What-
My Fitness Pal.
Oh, see, there we
Yeah.
go. Make note of that, guys, because yeah,
Yeah.
there's those are those little tools, that
Yeah.
tracking body composition. But you're right. What you put in your body
Oh, I went vegan
makes a
3
huge
years,
difference. Yeah.
and maybe I didn't do it right, but man, I look like I aged 5 years. I lost all kinds of muscle. Maybe I wasn't eating the right vegan, but I did it for 30 years. I'm like I said, I'll eat that marble table to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to be vegan, but I thought this is anti-cancer, anti-cardiovascular problems. Let's be a vegan, right?
Yeah.
And I just could not keep muscle on me. I just
Yeah.
lost strength. I think it
Yeah.
even maybe hurt my joints in the long run. And then I went carnivore. And I tried carnivore. Man, I've been eating carnivore. I went up carnivore for about a year. And like I said, I'll just eat meat. That's all I ate was meat, Boy, I started feeling better. I didn't have any indigestion, no reflux, nothing. Felt good. I could eat as much as I wanted and didn't feel full. And so now I've played around with it where I got, I'm adding other things into my diet. And now I'm watching some fat content and all that. But when I came to I didn't know how I fit, into the composition of it all with body fat and, my bloods and
Yeah.
numbers and stuff, So, but now I've learned I want my blood work about every 6 months
Mm-hmm.
because the older I get, I even got a CAT scan. There was a calcium scan
Mm-hmm.
that I went in. It was 0, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be. And you never know. I mean, I'm going to be 64 here in April in another couple weeks. And you don't know how that's all going on inside you. If you're going to have a cardiovascular problem. My
Yeah.
dad had hardening of the arteries when he was
Mm-hmm.
about in his late 80s or late 70s. And
So just doing all the preventative stuff
Yeah.
and looking at it. And there's even advanced lipid profile testing that we can add on. And I would say every 3 months, sometimes
go.
just looking at blood work
Sure.
and more advanced things.
this
But
is a
yeah.
machine that I got to keep
Yeah,
greased,
I
man,
agree,
and
yeah.
running. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think you should talk more and more about that too. It's very, very inspiring.
Well, good.
Yes. So, and this brings us to one of the reasons why we were doing the podcast, because obviously you can see why we're having Randy on, is you can see that he is very, again, optimizing, like, and all about, giving your body everything it needs for longevity
Mm-hmm.
and health span, so that you want healthy. We don't
Yeah.
want just years, we want healthy years. And then he has a YouTube channel, but you got to optimize on the outside. So I saw him and I'm like, I mean, we got some lines we got to address, maybe a little Botox.
Gosh.
Look, do you think on your videos, you may actually, I mean, we got to get rid of those lines if at all
They were
possible.
like the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon on my forehead.
Yeah,
That's
I was like,
Yeah.
you look great on the videos, but I think, we need to work on those lines. You're optimizing inside.
Yeah.
We can't let you on video like that. So
I mean,
that's
I
one
even-
of the reasons
Yeah.
is because, again, Botox. I think men don't realize they have to. I mean, I think beautifying on the inside's,
Yeah.
necessary. If
Mhm.
you're not doing that,
Yep.
then you don't need to do, the other. But I talked him into Botox for the first time. And so,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
no man left behind. You guys have to have a place to beautify too. And so, tell us a little bit about
Beautify.
your experience. And he was actually not opposed to it. He was thinking about it himself. I just ended up talking to him, about the fact that those videos will go completely viral once he has
You're right.
Botox.
We'll see. We'll see if you get 1,000,000 hits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a couple buddies that had gotten Botox, and I was like, all right. I didn't think either way. I said, that's cool, And then, of course, like I said, I get on YouTube and I'm like that, and I'm like, man, I just, then everybody looks in the mirror. I got a buddy who's 75 years old, and he said, I get up in the morning and he said, I look in the mirror and I'm like, who in the world is that guy?
Yeah.
'Cause
notice
you don't
something.
feel like
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
look like,
yeah.
And I've never considered myself handsome guy. I'm just like, okay, just go on with life. But now that I got YouTube and there's people and I start looking more at my face and I'm like, and I'm getting older, and you start thinking about, man, I just don't want to. My dad, when he died at 96, And I always told him he could carry his skin in a wagon behind him because he's just sagging. He's got sagging skin. It's just I don't know if it's in our DNA, but I looked at it, I'm starting to get these hanging in my neck, and I'm like, man, I said I'm gonna need a facelift. And I even went to a doctor, and I was ready to get a facelift. I said I need to get this done. I'm gonna look like my dad, like a chicken or a turkey, when I get older. And then my schedule was too busy, and I don't know. It just felt, as soon as I wanted to do that, I started looking in the mirror, and I'm like, you don't look so bad.
Yeah, you're like,
and I was like, I don't know if I want to go through this with the scars and stuff. And I thought, I didn't know, but I'm glad I didn't go through with it. And then that's when, I was in there, and I told you, and you said, well, let's just do some Botox to see what it looks like,
Yeah.
And
that wasn't all we suggested, but and I say that only because, again, I just strongly do not believe in that. I mean, they used to do facelifts on women at 50.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine, women in their 50s needing that if we just did some laser. Like, we don't talk about regeneration. So you're doing all the other stuff, the nutrition, the fitness, peptides, health, like you're doing all of that, but we lose collagen elastin. So when we look in the mirror, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
We're seeing all these changes in our skin, but it's loss of collagen elastin or volume. So those are things that we can do to regenerate. So
my
I'm
skin's
anti,
thin.
so I told him that. I said, no, you don't need a facelift. He looks wonderful. And he doesn't need a facelift, but we need just to regenerate, stimulate some collagen elastin. I'm huge on lasers. So that's what I told him. I go, we can tighten all this up by stimulating collagen elastin. Not that you need anything tightened up, but the things that were bothering you,
I need
we
it
can
all
do.
tightened up. Yeah.
We can do with lasers because we just stimulate collagen elastin, throughout the skin and around the eyes. I think with men especially, eyes, performance, I say for sure, because if they're not able to recover, work out at the gym, that bothers them. Obviously, performance all the way around, but also eyes and hair. Those tend to be the problematic areas that will really bother, but jawline too. So everything you're saying is what a lot of men, will start to notice, which isn't a big deal at all, but easy to treat with some lasers.
And a lot of guys just give up when they get about my age. They're saying, it is what it is. I'm like, you know what? I got this fight in me. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give up yet. I want to try to hang on to what I got a little bit if I could. And I'm kind of glad that it didn't go to the facelift that was that drastic. And if I can listen to you and I can do a few things that doesn't shut me down like that, I'd much rather do that. And you see some of this on YouTube, and you really don't know what to trust. You don't know what laser to do, and you see people that's been damaged by it, and people with all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what treatment to go to.
It's a rabbit hole, complete rabbit hole with it. And that's why I think for men and women, because I love the sexual wellness and wellness. So that's obviously my jam is that part, but regenerative aesthetics too, where we're actually just giving the body back what it needs to look natural.
Right.
So, we lose muscle treatment. So if we talk about Botox, we're treating the muscles, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about the fact that you have muscles that are moving, that are creating lines. And if those lines are still there after we do Botox, then we need to sand those down in some way. But you can do that, with a microneedling, anything that stimulates collagen elastin. So lasers is a big, huge one. But then we get volume loss, right? So as we age, all of a sudden we have volume loss. So recreating that volume and structure, but underneath the muscle is usually where that needs to be placed so it doesn't look unnatural.
Right.
So you can do that underneath the muscle on the jawline and the cheek, and just recreate that volume. But then we're looking and seeing skin changes. And so that's collagen elastin. So, and the only thing that stimulates that is lasers, some kind of injury to the skin.
That causes the buildup.
That causes that buildup. So, we're not trying to look 20, but we're trying to look good at whatever age we are and natural. And so if we're just chasing it with fillers and just Botox, that's why I say the little lines that we have left after is because we need to do Botox in our 20s when people started because of that movement. Then they don't get those lines. But no, lasers will do it. And it just keeps you young and rejuvenated, but not you're not trying to be.
No,
you're just trying to look great at your age.
Well, the guy said
and you would never
night,
guess you're in your 60s ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You guys,
But I'm sure you hear that all the time. I'm not the first one that said that.
I don't know. I mean, you don't know if he's lying or not. You could be just fibbing me, just to feel good.
But that's why I say when
Yeah.
you suggest that, then I say I'm not the first one that said it. Then
Yeah.
I'm not.
You're not the first one to lie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And well, last night the guys were at the table. We got a shop, and we're always got people in and going and stuff, and the guys are in there. And I said, I don't have a 6-pack. I want to lose this right here. And they said, well, that's just skin, Randy. I said, well, I was never fat. It's just, he said, well, you're not going to look 16 again. You're not going to have a 6-pack. And I said, well, don't take that dream away from me. I'm still wanting to tweak it a little bit and play with it, And I don't know. That's probably just my personality of always wanting to improve myself.
Yeah.
Mentally,
Yeah.
physically, spiritually, whatever I can do to better myself every single day,
Yeah.
I try to do it. I got this contest that I do every single day every single year on my birthday is I do that many push-ups of how old I am, So I'm beginning 64, so I got to do 64 continuous push-ups on my birthday, And I do that to make sure that I stay in the shape that I need to do to perform that, and everybody waits for me to do that, So
when is your birthday?
April 23rd.
So it's coming up.
Oh, 3
I'm
weeks
glad
from
I
now, yeah.
asked. So yeah, we'll make sure Samantha doesn't send you like 64 cupcakes or something, like
Yeah.
that. Instead, something along those lines. But I think that is still, you're pushing that, just, again, I think if we feel good inside, and feel good about the way we look, then, that's part of it. And
Yeah.
so even if it's like skin, it's not doing something unnatural for those people that are like, you're just aging, it's part of it. If you're
Right.
just stimulating your own body's
Right.
ability to repair something, even if it's skin tightening, that's okay.
It makes
That's
you feel
good. It
just
makes you feel better.
a little
Yeah.
bit better about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And there's that balance of getting too far where you're getting so far it's
Don't
you
be
never feel
obsessed with it. Yeah.
you
yeah,
never feel
yeah.
pretty enough or handsome
Yes.
enough. And you got to have that balance and the right mental objective of looking at it. But
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
good with
I
that.
can't see you ever, and again, I don't think a lot of people are like that. So there's that mindset of like,
Yeah.
you
Just
don't
do
need to do anything. They're,
Yeah.
worried about, but that there's that obsession with it too.
But do
So
it. I
it's
mean,
just-
it made
yeah.
me feel. I mean, I've had,
Yeah.
like I said, a bunch of my buddies come up and said, "Man, you look better."
Yeah.
I said, "Why do I look better?" And they said, "I don't know. You look younger for some reason." And I was working this weekend, and the Botox I got in my forehead. Okay, guys, this is what it is. Because if you work outside, I was outside, and I have never worn sunglasses. I have never in my life. And so I'm up on the sun, and it's scorching, and these boys are working with me. And I couldn't squint that good because of the Botox. And I was like, what's going on? I couldn't squint that well. It was felt weird, So it is a difference that you feel. It's not like it's just nothing.
And he still has too much squint left, so we got to
Yes.
get rid of some
Get
of that.
rid of that
yeah.
squint, too.
yeah.
I'm going to have to get
Yeah.
some sunglasses.
You got to get some sunglasses, yeah.
But it was a little different. But, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
It's just another.
Well, I think that for men, when they get it the first time, I frequently hear first time. There's some change that they're kind of like, noticing and maybe unhappy, not unhappy, but it's like, well, I feel heavy. I can't move my forehead. Or, now I'm noticing something else. But like across the board, then once they start to get the movement back, they're all good with
Yeah.
getting. And there's little tweaks you can do, but I think it looks amazing.
Well, thank
yeah.
you.
We need a little more. We got to take a little more
You're
squint
going to
out
put
of
me
it.
under the
yeah.
light again. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, no, but it'll be all good when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be friends again.
Okay.
Like even
right.
after the laser treatments and you're, but I
I'm
want you
willing
to
try
talk
a
about
few
them. Yeah.
things. Yeah, just
Yeah, I think you'd
play
be.
around with it.
Yeah, but I love hearing the story. So again, I want to make a trip out because my son, just to give a little, and Randy and I were talking about this before we went on. That my son is about to turn 21, and so he was on his own, living in an apartment, and then lived again with me for a few months before going out to Colorado for the first
Right.
time to work the ski season, and it was a great move for him. Like he's loved it.
Sure.
It's been great. Again, first time living outside of this area for a while, but he's about to move back. I don't know
Right.
how long he'll stay because it sounds like he wants to travel more. But then he would be moving back in until we figured it out. So I need to come look at a tiny home.
Yeah.
I need a piece of property in a tiny home so he has a place to call his own for a little while.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
things are changing. Tiny homes are really hard to to use in the zoning and the codes and restrictions they have in most municipalities. Knox County, the mayor of Knox County was, he was the WWE wrestler.
Yes, yeah.
And wow, he loves affordable housing.
I was going to say Glenn would usually be, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Hey, we have a need for this because rent is $2,000 and up, right? And kids and young people and old people can't afford it." So years ago, about 2-3 years ago, I proposed a system to put tiny homes in backyards because the infrastructure is already there, water, power, and sewer, and people could rent out a tiny home in their backyard, and they get a tax subsidy from the city or county because they're actually helping somebody live, and they give them a lower rental place. They get an income. The homeowner gets an income. The city gets people that can work in the city and live, and they get a tax incentive. And I actually did it for homeless. I wanted all our homeless to live in a backyard, and the people mentor like a foster parent, until they're on their way and on their feet and they can go on. And so they get a tax incentive, and it takes all the homeless off the streets. And New Haven, Connecticut had just called us about 2 weeks ago, and that's where Yale University is. And they called us and they said, "Man, we love your homes because we sell our homes for $20,000, and nobody in the country can sell homes that inexpensively." They've adopted that process. I didn't talk to them. They got tax incentives for homeowners to put a tiny home in their backyard and rent it as affordable housing to the young people in that community. They do not have anybody that can wait tables, clean homes, work on cars. Nobody can live in the city because it's too expensive. So they're going to adopt that, and they've given us an exclusive ability to come there, and they've given us their town square, 7,000 square foot little lot to put our models on. And this is the Northeast. And, the Northeast is like, there was no way a tiny home would be up there. So they've opened the doors to that for us to come up there. And that's what we're so excited about that,
That's exciting.
Knox County. Yeah.
Are we there yet?
We're in negotiations with them right now. Lowe's Home Improvement has called us. They're looking at wanting us to put our homes on their lot so we can start selling tiny homes on their locations, 2,600 of them across the country. Paducah, Kentucky, the mayor of Paducah, Kentucky came to Newport, Tennessee, brought 3 of his councilmen and seen the communities that we built because I've developed land now, and I got about 500 lots that people are living in right there in Newport in tiny homes. And he said, "I want this in Paducah. I want affordable housing in Paducah." So tomorrow morning, I'll be going to Paducah and trying to finalize what we're going to do. We're going to sit with the mayor. We're going to look at the city. We're doing some local lending and see if we can give some local banks. And so if we can facilitate that process in Paducah, and if it works well, we've already purchased land there. If it works there, he said, "Hey, I want you to show you some really poor parts of the city." And I said, "That's what I want. I want your land that nobody wants. And I will turn it into a destination, and everybody will wish they were there." We're going to put picket fences, and we're going to be restrictions, and it's going to be nice and neat, and people are going to enjoy and love living there. And as time goes on, it's going to be a place that people want to live, and they'll have equity in their home built. Our philosophy is that I like to build a house that you've got instant equity when you buy it. You can sell it right now and make money off of me. So what I'm trying to do is sell hamburgers instead of ribeyes. I'm saying, like, you know what, $3 to $5 a day, a hamburger, I can make profit. I'm good to go. Yeah. And for some reason, I just took that on is because so many people want to build these big houses. They're all $300,000 to $500,000, and nobody can afford them. I can build smaller homes, and they're selling like chiclets right off the shelf constantly. So I've got this assembly line that we build 3 to 5 a day. Wow. And we're trying to perfect that more. And now we're getting to the point, guys are asking me before the show, said, "Hey, can you duplicate that process?" And I said, "Yeah, we can take that." And now we know exactly the how many employees we need, the size of the building, the cost effectiveness, and we can put that in Nevada, we can put that in Florida, and we can build more homes accordingly. And that's the big dream. We're not there yet.
I love it. Yeah. I think that's an awesome, I had no idea about that, but it only makes sense too, because nobody can afford rent. And I would love to see Knox County be able to do that. Wonder what kind of control they have over HOAs that, seem to govern everything for people that would want to put it in there.
You got an HOA, I'm sure.
I do.
Yeah. And that's probably the only place we can't go in, because HOAs have the restrictions unless you appear before the HOA and say, "Hey, this is my proposal," and they got to be voted in. If you go to a city or county, it's the ordinances in which they've been proposed in it. you can get some variances and stuff. So that's why we're working with some cities and counties
Yeah, I
and
was
trying
gonna
to
s-
implement these restrictions,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I love it. Are you going to do videos of you like traveling to Paducah, for
Oh
instance?
yeah, everything's always
All right.
everything's
Yeah.
my whole life's a video.
All right. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to watch that. And then we're going to make a trip out because I would love to hear more about that. That was the first time we talked about it. Yeah, I could just sit here and listen. But
No.
I guess we're on a time crunch, so we won't do it this time. But I think we can probably come up with about 3 or 4 other topics to
Yeah.
run off of that.
Oh,
But
I
no,
got stories on stories.
I
Yeah.
know. And so definitely check out his channel because obviously you know now how entertaining it'll be. And not only that, but informative. And the houses are amazing. And again, they're the sizes that you're talking about and
Hmm.
the simplicity of maybe what that is, which I think is all that somebody needs is,
Yeah. I live in a
a
house.
safe place to,
I
yeah,
live in a 16-foot house,
yeah,
8 by 16. I built them for $15,000.
yeah.
And I've lived in it now for 3-4 years.
And even
Yeah.
if they wanted something fancier, I saw all kind. I mean,
Yes.
there's just about anything. So and again, I think the tinier, the more simple your life is. It's so much easier because, those big homes. There's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But no, I can't wait to see the property and meet everyone and meet your, team up there.
Well, thank you.
And
Yeah.
thank you for coming on and talking about your story.
Hmm.
And again, how we met. The peptides are definitely something to check out because it does optimize. And if you have any questions, definitely there's lots of videos on our channel
Yeah.
about peptides. And then Botox, I love it. We'll have them on again after I talk him into all the
Just some more
lasers so that we can
treatments.
see the difference. Yeah.
Good.
All
Thanks
right.
for
Well,
having me.
yeah, no, thank you for being here.
Yep.
And we'll do it again at some point. So,
You got
Randy
it.
Jones with Incredible Tiny Homes, and please check out his channel and leave us some feedback if there's anything you want to hear more about or if you have any questions. Just leave them in the comments, and we're here to answer anything about wellness and sexual wellness and aesthetics. Thank you.